Hi there, hope you're all well, and a very warm welcome back to a brand new year of At the Movies with Andrew, starring Andrew, who is myself. And yes, here we are in January 2019, so here's to the start of a whole new list of experiences at the cinema, and me sharing them with you and hoping you enjoy. And unlike last year in 2018, we don't have any strong contenders for box office cheddar like Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle or The Greatest Showman to guarantee putting bums in seats. So let's plough on and let's hope that there's enough out there to encourage us to go to the cinema even after Christmas and New Year's, and feeling the physical and financial ramifications of that. So let's get started. So I hear you ask, what was my first movie of 2019? What did I choose? What special movie did I select to start the year off on a hopefully strong note? Holmes and Watson. Holmes and Watson, directed by Ethan Cohen, not Ethan Cohen. That is a very important distinction to make. A comedy, and I use the term very loosely, in which Will Ferrell plays the renowned detective Sherlock Holmes, and No, I'm sorry, I couldn't say that with a straight face. He's not Sherlock Holmes here. He's playing Will Ferrell. He's playing his usual big, dumb, shouty, man-child, stretchy face, shouting all the time character, except he happens to be supposedly inhabiting the character of Sherlock Holmes. Along with John C. Reilly as his long-suffering, underappreciated partner, Dr. John Watson. We start off with their nemesis, Moriarty, played by Ralph Fiennes of all people, except Sherlock bursts into the court and says, "This is not Moriarty, this is a renowned impersonator who you can tell from telltale signs that he's a chronic masturbator, so he can't possibly be Moriarty." So they have no choice to let him go. Shortly afterwards, though, there is an assassination at Buckingham Palace, to which there is a letter from Moriarty, supposedly, saying, "Solve this case in 4 days or I will assassinate the Queen." And that's really about it in terms of a setup. Yeah, thanks to the world of online reviews and audience aggregate reception and just the general power of the internet, this film already got a bad reputation before it even reached cinemas here in the UK. And it's a story that I feel is worth relating, and in some respects is more riveting than the film itself. This was filmed way back at the end of 2016. I don't know if it was due to be released in 2017, but it was certainly due to be released 2 or 3 times throughout 2018. But here's the thing. Test screenings of this were so disastrous that they kept pushing it back. And it even got to the point where Sony, the distributors of this, tried fobbing this off to Netflix. Yeah, I think from this we can confirm that streaming services are the new straight to DVD, or are the new streaming services are the new dumping ground when it comes to films that studios can calculate are not going to do as well as at the box office as they'd like to hope. It happened with Paramount and Annihilation getting ignored in favour of Black Panther doing so well. It happened with Warner Brothers and Andy Serkis's take on the Jungle Book, Mowgli: Legend of the Jungle. I mean, at first it looked like, oh, what if Disney is bringing out its own version of Jungle Book in the same year? It'll be 2 different sides, it'll be 2 different interpretations that can compete against each other. Then Disney's version made $1 gajillion and Warner Brothers went, oh. and they looked at the CG in their version and went, oh, we don't stand a chance. So obviously Sony thought they could apply the same tactic here, saying, look, here's this little Will Ferrell comedy that could be a good laugh for you, Netflix, maybe you can have it. And allegedly Netflix turned around and said, no, this is bad even for us, and we have an exclusive contract to do Adam Sandler comedies. Despite that, one should never go into a film with biased, prejudiced expectations. I do get that as a seasoned viewer. I mean, Will Ferrell, I enjoyed the Anchorman movies. I get his broad, dumb, over-the-top shtick of comedy. And I found it can work sometimes. And this is a partnership with John C. Reilly that's worked in the past. We had Tagadale Nights and Step Brothers. So obviously it's going to follow the format of these two brothers or partners. And then by the third act, they get into a disagreement, and then Will Ferrell is all sulky and mopey, and then they get back together, all in an exaggerated, over the top, broad slapstick way. I get that. And why not apply that model to Sherlock Holmes and try and see how it works out? And Sherlock Holmes is a fictional public domain character and has been parodied and put to comedic effect in the past. We've had The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes's smarter brother. We've had Without a Clue. So, you know, it's not unreasonable to think we can get some chuckles out of this. And Sherlock is back in the public consciousness thanks to Benedict Cumberbatch and Robert Downey Jr. So, my mind was as open as it was possible to be for about 10 seconds. And then the opening caption is a philosophical quote about the power of the mind and power of logic. And then this quote is attributed to season 2, episode 5 of Hannah Montana. At which point all my hope for this movie went out the window, along with the voiceover of Will Ferrell talking like this in a very over-the-top, sophisticated way. That's when you know that an American can't do a British accent, so he has to go all snooty like this, and you've realised that the whole movie is going to be like this. Yeah. It's going to be written in this way, and I hesitate to use the word written in this in the context of this film. I strongly suspect that a lot of this was improvised, or they put John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell on camera on a set and said, "You're Sherlock Holmes and you're Dr. Watson. Make something up, do something funny." And yeah, this film is the cinematic equivalent of a comedy improvisation night gone horribly wrong. You've got the setup, but there's no spark. There's no creativity. Everybody's tired and can't think of anything. So the setup for the scene is flubbed already. So all you can resort to in the absence of any clever jokes or dialogue is to flail around and shout a lot. You've got Will Ferrell shouting things like, "Mrs. Hudson, come in here, John. Dr. Watson stuck a carrot up my bum." And then you don't know how to end the scene, so you have to end with a coarse punchline, or one character or the other punching each other. And that's your conclusion. That's your punchline to the film, to the scene, sorry. And then maybe a line of dialogue about, "Ooh, here's a clue," or "Here's a newspaper. I've got an idea where to go next." And that is the only connecting tissue between scene to scene. Most of the movie is like this. But apart from the improvisation, the script, if there is one, is dependent on two central jokes that feel very tired. One is, let's make fun of the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movies. Let's parody those films. 7 to 8 years after the last one came out. So particularly those scenes when Sherlock is thinking about the scenario and the trajectory and the outcome and the probable scenarios of how to win the fight or solve the crime scene. So in here you've got Holmes and Watson going into a back alley being blind drunk, and how do I aim my urine? The trajectory of the piss will flow over the fence as such. If I do it this way, it will avoid the countenance of the probability of getting urine on my shoes. And if I go like this, oh bother, I forgot to unzip my trousers first. Oh dear. Yeah, and more than that, let's do modern isms. Let's reference modern things, but the joke is it's in Victorian times. So let's have Dr. Watson put a very large, cumbersome Victorian pictograph on a plank of wood and go, I've invented the self-photograph. Hey girl! You've got an exhibition called Magic Michael. You've got orphans saying, no shit Sherlock. Because didn't you ever wonder where that phrase came from? And more than that, you've got Trump jokes. You've got a Fez saying, make England great again. You've got the love interests saying to Holmes and Watson, we don't believe in the monarchy, we believe in white middle class business people being in charge of our country in America, and oh, imagine what that would be like. Congratulations, Holmes and Watson. You've made making fun of President Trump unpopular and tired and outdated. I hope you're proud of yourselves. And I'm just going to go into the climax right here because it gets really anachronistic. And did you even think about this? Not just in the context of the film, but whether this would be funny or not. The climax is on the Titanic. Yep, that's not historically accurate, I know, but it's just so that we can have dialogue like, quick, we have to go and save the Titanic. Oh, and oh yeah, also on that, on there, the dubbing of this movie, never mind the flat direction and the cheap looking sets, this must be a product of the delays in releasing this. The dubbing in this movie is atrocious, and it really became apparent to me when the surprise villain makes their motivational revenge speech. The volume of the speech and the phrasing, the dialogue, bears absolutely no relation to the movement of the mouth. That just shows you they did not give a damn when it came to post-production on this thing. But with the Titanic, when that's saved, they go, remember when you're sailing on the Titanic, remember that Holmes and Watson put you there. And when they're leaving the ship, they go, oh, look, there's Billy Zane. That's not me paraphrasing that. The line of dialogue is, look, it's Billy Zane. And they point, and there's old, tired-looking Billy Zane going, hey, everybody, and reciting a line from the film Titanic like it's a blooming subpar episode of Family Guy. What else can I say about this? What else do you need to know? I mean, congratulations, Sherlock Gnomes. You are no longer the worst parody of Sherlock Holmes that came out within the past year. This is a hardcore burn it. I mean, Hannah Montana. Hannah Montana? Who cares about Hannah Montana anymore? Miley Cyrus doesn't care about Hannah Montana. Hannah Montana? How dare you? How dare you, sir? Right, so after that little mishap, what could I have then gone and see to try and raise my spirits and raise my hopes for watching movies at the cinema this year? Aquaman, the superhero that talks to fish. Yeah. Unlike my Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse review, I'm not going to suddenly produce a comic or a graphic novel and say, I've actually been reading the Aquaman comics and I've a vested interest in this character, because I don't. I'm a Doctor Who fan. My knowledge and interest in Atlantis only stretches to a dodgy East European scientist with his leotard wearing fish people, as well as Ingrid Pitt's cheddar gorge cleavage. But I can say that this is the latest DC comic book superhero movie, the latest in a line of um, interconnected films that has included Batman versus Superman, Suicide Squad, and Justice League. Um, Directed by James Wan, and because it's part of that timeline, it does have the awkward position of having to be a bit of an origin story whilst carrying on the present timeline that was established in Justice League. So we get the opening 10 minutes establishing Arthur Curry was born of a runaway queen of Atlantis and a lighthouse keeper, and then something happened to his mother, and he grew up with a sense of both guilt and not wanting to belong to the secret undersea world of Atlantis. We get that there, and we get the occasional flashback afterwards, but then we cut to the present day where his half brother, King Orm, is hoping to engineer and manufacture a war with the surface people because they are selfish and greedy and they are polluting and killing our oceans, putting him firmly in the line of comic book supervillains like Killmonger and Thanos and that ghost woman off Ant-Man and the Wasp of, you're hoping to do horrible things, but I totally see where you're coming from. To which Aquaman's love interest, the improbably coiffured Mera, played by Amber Heard, goes to Aquaman for help in deposing King Orm, or Ocean Master, as he's calling himself. I mean, talk about one-upping your brother. I'm Aquaman. Oh, yeah, well, I'm Ocean Master. Okay, yeah, you've got a better name. To help in deposing him or thwarting his plans for war and conquest. To which Aquaman initially says no, and Mera says, but you helped us against Steppenwolf. And Aquaman says that had nothing to do with saving Atlantis. And that is the only time that Justice League, the movie, is referenced or built upon in any way whatsoever. So you can tell how proud Warner Brothers are of that movie and want to build on that. This leads to confronting the king, and then leading to, well, the way to stop him is to get this magical MacGuffin trident of King what's his name, the first ruler of Atlantis, Q, running around, Q fighting, Q action. This is pretty much an action blockbuster. And with its thematic references to Indiana Jones and Romancing the Stone and The Little Mermaid, I'd say this is trying to be all the action blockbuster movies. Even down to the soundtrack, which is a tiny bit all over the place. When we the audience enter the futuristic, amazing looking undersea world of Atlantis with its flying ships and amazing technology, you get full blown electronic synth Blade Runner 2049 music. And then sometime after that, as Aquaman and Mera are wandering around the Sahara Desert going, I know exactly where the location of the trident of the recording is. Face it, princess, you've got no idea where we're going. We're lost, complete with herpy derpy 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 derp comedy music. signifying to anyone who hasn't got it already that this is a couple that disagree with each other, but they're going to love each other by the end, even though Amber Heard and Jason Momoa clearly have no chemistry with each other. And also on the action blockbuster side, I counted about 3 times that there'd be some exposition, some description about the world of Atlantis, or the trident, where it came from, who the first king was, or where the next clue is pointing them to, and this would conclude with a great big boom. So now we have to go there. Boom! The wall blew up. The security guards have arrived. Okay, so this is where we have to go next. Boom! Masonry came down. The villain's coming after us now. Let's run, 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 run. You know, movie, there are other ways of ending your conversation, don't you? All right, never mind. I will say, this movie is stupid. It is silly, but it is a fun kind of silly. It's silly and melodramatic, and it's not ashamed of it. I mean, Patrick Wilson as King Orm with his proclamations of "I am the King of Atlantis." He's clearly having a ball with that. This, you can tell that James Wan was given the brief of, this is a superhero, he's the King of Atlantis, and he talks to fish. And he decided, I am not going to make this dark. I am not going to make this edgy. I am not going to make this realistic. I am just going to go balls to the wall, have fun with this, and treat this like a Saturday morning cartoon. This film does, I feel, I hope, depending on what the future output of DC movies is, this represents a sea change. No, I'm not ashamed of saying that. From the Zack Snyder approach of filmmaking, I think it's safe to say that from the basis of this film, that those days are done. Case in point, Julie Andrews makes an uncredited appearance in this movie as the big Cthulhu monster guardian of the trident. Yeah, she is a monster that swims into view and has this telepathic communication with Aquaman of, you are a half-breed, you do not belong here. Yeah, Julie Andrews. If you ever get the chance, get a time machine, I urge you to travel back 5, maybe 10 years into the past and tell someone in the street that one day there will be a sequel to Mary Poppins, but Julie Andrews is not going to be the star. She is going to be in cinemas around the same time as the Mary Poppins sequel, but she's going to be voicing a guardian monster in a very popular, high-grossing Aquaman movie. I guarantee you'll be thrown in an insane asylum faster than you can say Bruce Willis in 12 Monkeys. But yeah, it is colourful. It is bright. It is engaging, and it is fast-paced. Although it can be a little too colourful and overblown with the CGI at times. The final fight between all the warring tribes of Atlantis, or the Undersea Kingdom, with Aquaman trying to stop all this, was the cinematic equivalent of seafood getting flushed down the toilet. But that being said, I had fun with this. It's big, it's dumb, but it's a big, dumb, fun kind of big fun and dumb. I kind of mangled that, but I'm giving this a watch it, but it is a very generous and entertaining watch it. A big blockbuster movie about a man of Atlantis who talks to fish could not have been better made. While I think about it, the cast are committed to this material, but I think special props in particular go to Jason Momoa as our lead character. Yes, he is still playing Aqua Dude or Aqua Bro from Justice League, or yes, and all that, but having a full-length film to himself makes all the difference in the world, really. Giving him an origin, giving him a backstory, giving him a character, giving him both contempt and sympathy for his villainous half-brother does suddenly make him a charismatic and engaging lead. Yes, the odd joke is in there, but I'd say that DC is doing an okay job of not outright copying Marvel. It may need to take cues in order to catch up, but I'd say based on the evidence of this that DC is finally catching up with Marvel, even if it is about 3 or 4 years behind. But there is hope. Right, my third movie of January of 2019 is The Favourite, the latest directorial effort from Greek director Yorgos Lanthimos. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, whose previous works include Dogtooth, The Lobster, and The Killing of a Sacred Deer. This is a comedy. It's based in the 19th century in English history, and supposedly has a grounding in actual history or accounts and diaries of what happened around that time, of the last Stuart monarch, Queen Anne, here played by Olivia Colman in her dying years, who was very close friends with Lady Sarah Churchill, ancestor of Winston, the Duchess of Marlborough, here played by Rachel Weisz, and her character has a pretty good life, all things considered. When we join this film, she's the wife of a general who's waging a very successful, if rather costly, war against the French. She's good friends with the incumbent Prime Minister, and more to the point, she is able to get close to Queen Anne, who at this point is old, senile, depressed and suffering gout, and able to win her affections, both in a personal and a sexual manner, and advise her about the war against the French, about taxes, about policies, and really get up and close and personal and honest with the Queen. So life is pretty cushy, and into this steps Lady Sarah's younger, blonde, wide-eyed, innocent cousin, played by Emma Stone, who's fallen on hard times and is just looking for a job, looking for any way to survive and make ends meet after having fallen from grace. And from this she gets closer and closer to Sarah, and by association gets closer to the Queen, and even threatens to supplant Lady Sarah in Queen Anne's affections. Yeah, regarding the director, out of his previous works, I'd say that I saw The Lobster and quite enjoyed it back when it first came out, and it had a very its whole premise is that it was taking the concept of dating, the human interaction process of dating, and turning it into this Kafkaesque nightmare, and adding very monotone, stilted manners of speech and of dialogue. I do remember stuff like, we had to have a code. This meant I love you. This meant watch out, we're in danger. We had to be very careful not to confuse I love you with watch out, we're in danger. Which I get is a very acquired taste, but I did enjoy that premise and that manner of delivering it. But I hear that is that kind of odd, stilted mode of speech and of very sterile and staid, corrosive human interaction is prevalent throughout his work. So Um, a restoration comedy or something set in the English High Court would seem a very odd choice of direction for his next project. Until you hear the characters and the actors speak, and you realise it's actually quite a good fit because he's taken that mode of speech and applied it to that very English sense, or at least that high class British English sense back in the day of fake courtesy, of barbed witticisms, of eloquent, pompous speech, barely concealing true feelings towards each other. So that you should watch yourself, cousin. You should be careful of your place and who you deal with. And oh, did it look like I just tried to shoot you? It is curious. It's difficult to know if you've ever loaded the gun or not, and yet it still makes that same shooting sound. It's a very clever jape, don't you think? I hope it's something that you'll reflect on and remember when you're thinking about me. I'm paraphrasing there, but it does sum up this movie as a very catty, bitchy, almost Mean Girls-esque love triangle, taking these three female figures and placing them in this world of vain, pompous men, vain, pompous politicians, and at the top is this uh, battle, this love triangle between the Queen and her two closest advisors. It's almost like a kinky baroque restoration version of All About Eve when you think about it. What with the younger person coming in and usurping the older guard, so to speak. Uh, yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. For the way it was shot, for one thing. The location they used to film this, with its long narrow hallways and the grounds, the gardens surrounding it, and the courtrooms and the candlelit hallways, what have you. Very well shot, very good wide long shots of these things, but also the odd occasional fish eye lens that really helps to add a odd distortion effect, uh, to add to the oddness of what's occurring on screen. But mostly, I think all credit due to the three lead characters here. Not not just in terms of the script, as I've briefly touched on, but also from our leads. Emma Stone as the an initial innocent who has to develop a hard edge and develop a sense of cunning in order to survive and get back what she feels she's entitled to, what she initially lost. Rachel Weisz as, yes, she's a bit Blackadder-ish in the sense that she is the caustic, honest, barbed advisor here, but by the end of the film, you do get a sense that at least she's honest with her feelings. She may be hard, she may be brutal, but there's a sense that she genuinely cares about Queen Anne's well-being. Speaking of which, Queen Anne herself, Olivia Colman, a lot of people have praised her performance, and allow me to add to that. Like I said, this is part Blackadder, also part Barry Lyndon, and part Peter Greenaway's The Draftsman's Contract in terms of tone and visual aesthetics, which I'll touch again later. But when I say Blackadder, you could be forgiven for thinking that the monarch is just going to be a buffoon, like Elizabeth or Prince George in that TV series. And that was sort of my expectation going into this, because she does come across as old, fat, senile. She insists on having duck races at court. She insists on having 17 bunny rabbits as pets. She will moan and cry and have a strop. But as the script goes on, and as Olivia Colman portrays, there is a another edge to her character. a sad, tragic edge to her character, because these 17 bunny rabbits, we learn, represent her 17 miscarriages. So she, yes, she's old and fat and a bit not right in their head, but you sense that she's had a tragic past. But more than that, she has more of a sense of cunning, of awareness about what's going on between with her two confidants fighting for each other's affections, and she's being a bit like a young girl and playing off this to her advantage, as sometimes a lady likes to have a little fun. Oh, it's dreadfully fun to be queen sometimes, but more than that, no more than that. By the end of the film, without going into too many spoilers, she also displays a monstrous quality. Or you get the sense that despite Lady Sarah and her cousin's power over her, there's Queen Anne will never let you forget who's really in charge here, both in the sense of personal power as well as the sexual power. That's all I'll say. But I will say, speaking of which, if you've seen the poster or maybe a bit of the trailer, and you've got the sense that this movie is going to be a very traditional, very straight-faced costume drama, or at least a costume period piece, then don't. This is a very, very odd movie, very stilted, or very caustic and barbed dialogue, and a very debauched, grotesque sense of humour about its world and the people who inhabit it. There is a scene where a politician with a big bouffant restoration wig is fat and naked and being pelted at with oranges as a merry jape. Yeah, this does go further than you would expect a traditional restoration comedy to go. And I hear that my aunt, or at least the friend sitting next to her, walked out of the cinema in disgust. I say that as a warning, as that this is a very deliberate sense of humour and tone that may not be to everybody's taste. But like I say, part Blackadder, part Draftsman's Contract, part Barry Lyndon. This was right up my alley. And more than that, it was a very technically accomplished and very well acted piece of work. And on reflection, this was my first really entertaining, really special experience at the cinema this year. And for that, I have to edge this into a cherish it. Yeah, at the time of recording, the Oscar nominations have been announced, and both Roma and The Favourite are joint with 10 nominations each. And if you can tell from this review, and to some degree the fact that Roma was my best movie of 2018, as you may have seen in the previous video, then I do genuinely wish both of these movies well. I just hope that Olivia Colman does not come to the ceremony looking like a badger. And on that note, and on that last film, you can tell we're now getting knee-deep into Oscar bait season, of awards contenders season. And we'll get a little bit more into that and the contenders or hopefuls that I chose to see in the rest of this month in part 2. In the meantime, I hope you'll join me there, and I hope you'll like, comment and subscribe to this channel. What did you think of the movies that I talked about in this video? In the meantime, I hope to see you again soon. Take care of yourselves and each other. Peace out.